Welcome to Copytraders Club, where you can learn how to make more money copy trading. I'm Gavin Macaulay, my name and username on eToro. You can continue the conversation on Discord and Facebook. Today is a very interesting chat with a quite unusual PI. He posts big returns, and we talk investing, but also the nature of money, freedom, the meaning of life, introversion, agnosticism, and mistaken first impression. Here we go. Episode 23 of Copytraders Club, and today we're delighted to welcome Gasper Sopi to the Copytraders Clubhouse. Who knows what to expect from this man of mystery? I can see him now having exited the limousine. He seems to be giving the driver a healthy tip. That's very nice of him. And now he approaches. Gasper, zdravo. Dobrodošli u Copytraders Club.
That was great, Gavin. Wow, impressive. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Love your show.
Thanks very much. It may not always be correct what I say, but it's good to try.
Absolutely.
All right, well, it's great to have you. Let's proceed into the clubhouse, specifically to the VIP lounge. But before we can, you need to answer a series of quickfire questions to get past reception. Ready for those?
Absolutely. Fire away.
Username on eToro.
Gasper Sopi.
Date you joined eToro.
October 2017.
Year of birth.
1980.
Place of residence.
Currently Zagreb, but usually nomadic.
Profession.
Tech and marketing consultant turned investment manager.
Briefly state what you aim to achieve on eToro.
I'm going to put this very bluntly, Gavin. I'm on eToro to make as much money as possible for my copiers and myself.
Name one of your investing heroes.
That's a hard one, but if I have to choose, it's Peter Lynch.
Name one of your favorite investing books.
Again, difficult to choose, but going with Peter Lynch again, Beating the Street.
That completes the formalities. Let's proceed into our VIP section here at the clubhouse, the splendid Copytraders Lounge. Gasper Sopi, are you ready for this magical transition?
Absolutely. Beam me up.
So here we are now in the Copytraders Lounge, Gasper. We made contact quite a while ago, so it's been a bit of a wait to get you here.
Yes, it has. Yeah, I've been busy with the exams mostly, and I was sort of traveling from London to Zagreb to sort of take care of some business. So happy to be here now.
Well, I've been really looking forward to chatting to you, especially since I watched a video of you on the Indie Club podcast.
Awesome.
With your friend Tom. Link in the show notes. That video is entitled Business, Freedom, Financial Independence, Travel, and Finding Your Purpose. A very wide-ranging philosophical chat covering a vast range of elements of life, a few of which we're going to touch on today. Are you happy for people who are interested in you to check out that video?
Absolutely, yes. I think it was an interesting conversation for me personally, and if people can extract some value, I'd be super pumped about it.
Tom's a friend of yours. You know him personally?
Yeah. Tom's a buddy that I've met in Zagreb. He lives in London now. We work in the same industry, or used to work way back then in the early 2000s in the design industry, etc. And then he's now very passionate about financial independence, and sort of he tries to help people transition to a freelancing lifestyle, to help people regain their sort of independence and in a way ditch the alarm clock and live a life that they would love to live, and that is an expression of their authentic self. So, and I'm happy to support his work. Sometimes we get into discussions, and this time he decided to do a recording.
Yeah, well, it's a great discussion, and it gave me a real insight into who you are and what you're all about. And I think the way to start our conversation is for me to explain that you may have inspired a new feature of these PI conversations, meaning I might make a point of telling each PI what my first impressions were of them before I started researching them, based on a very limited glance at their profile. And by that I mean just photo, name, whereabouts, quick glance at the top of the bio, that sort of thing. eToro is not a dating site, but I think there are so many PI profiles, I think a lot of people do merely glance and decide whether to swipe right or not. So you can feel free to ignore my subjective opinion, but the reason I'm bringing it up is that my first impression of you turned out to be wrong, very wrong. And that might be my fault, but there may also be elements of it that, once I explain it, might be helpful to you. You happy to explore all that?
Absolutely. Yes, please. By all means, share with me.
Okay, well, the first point is your eToro photo. Let me describe it for the listener who's maybe lying in a darkened room, not at their computer. First of all, it's not very close up. You can't get a great amount of face detail. Plus, there are glasses with the rims kind of covering some of the eye. You've a lot of facial hair. You've even got a microphone also getting in the way of your face. You're not smiling. You look like you're halfway through saying a word. You're wearing a dark jacket. And I would say that image, and maybe by extension, my perception of you at that, just from the photo, could be described as dark and distant, which is, I'm sure, not what you're not going for. And I now know is the complete opposite of what you're all about.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've never gotten this feedback. I mean, I think that photo is a couple of years old. So that was from a conference where I was speaking on a topic of UX design. And for some reason, I decided to go with it. I felt at that point I was still pretty much, when I joined eToro, I was pretty much more or less engaged in the business world, and that was the sort of the most professional picture that I had of me back then. But I can absolutely understand how all of the points that you mentioned. It's quite amusing to actually to be able to observe it in this way. It is true. It never occurred to me that my face is not visible, etc. I just thought that's kind of, it looked to me like a cool picture because I was sort of sharply dressed, which is not my usual attire, and I decided to leave it. But I'm super happy to reconsider, how I can choose sort of something that represents more about what's sort of what's a real expression of my personality. I don't think that wasn't an expression of my personality, but maybe it's time to changing because that was back in, I think that photo was done in 2016 or 15, something like that.
Well, a pic that would work perfectly is the one that I saw on your bio page on the Garmin website. Is that how it's pronounced? Garmin?
Yeah, Gurman.
Right. And if you zoomed that picture into your face, that's got lighter colors. It's well lit. You can see the whites of your eyes. You've got a cheeky little smile. You're looking professional and confident, but also friendly. And that's far more the Gasper that I have come to learn about in the past week. There's also a map of the world in the background, which might be in keeping with how you consider yourself a citizen of the world, as opposed to wearing any sort of label of nationality. You know the pic I mean?
Yes, absolutely. That's a new picture, and I have been sort of considering putting that on, but I guess I didn't pay too much attention to the profile pic. I was sort of more focused on delivering performance and results. But I totally understand and agree with you that, yeah, that kind of picture more represents sort of the more relaxed kind of guy that I usually am with, with friends and other people.
The second element is the name Gasper Sopi. At first, I wasn't certain if that was a username or your real name because it said UK, and maybe it's because I'm an Anglophone and both elements of your name are words in English, spelt differently, obviously. But, I was a little bit confused without even thinking about it. The first thing I did was look to your bio to see an explanation which would relieve my mind of any conflict and say, he's from somewhere else. And that's why it says his name is Gasper Sopi. That is his real name. I know it says Gasper Sopi underneath your username where it puts the real name. But I think the first time I saw your profile, maybe I was very new to eToro and I didn't connect all those dots. But I was thinking, bio means life. And while your bio is very information rich, there isn't much of the human side, bringing the PI to life. I was thinking if your bio started with, "Hi, I'm Gasper, I love investing because ... I've lived in many different countries and consider myself a citizen of the world. My story began in a small town in southern Europe, which is in the country called Kosovo." I would have seen that and thought, he's from that part of the world. Gasper Sopi's his real name. That tells me a little bit about him. And isn't that a nice picture of him smiling and all the rest of it? And I think those elements combined would have painted a far better picture of who you are and that you're a well-traveled, open-minded person and all the rest of it. That's my tuppence worth on the sort of first impression elements of your profile.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think there was a time when my portfolio was sort of more of a description of who I am instead of what I'm doing on eToro. But over time, I think I changed my perception of what eToro is. I changed it from, this is a social network where I'm at the center of my profile, to, this is a sort of a powerful platform where, yes, a PI is important, but I think it's not about the PI. It's more about what he's trying to do and the performance that he's trying to deliver. So I try to make it more sort of like a copier-centric description so that when you come to my profile, you understand what is the rationale and what is the underpinnings of my strategy, etc., instead of just being sort of like a virtual ID where I'm trying to express, a personal story. So I think that was the move that I did with switching it to a sort of more of a sort of numerical and information-rich description.
Okay, well, I mean, whatever works for you, obviously. I'm not demanding a change. I'm just saying, and I can imagine your fans thinking, "What's this guy on about? Gasper's not distant and remote, and he's a lovely fella." But you're right, and we'll come on to your bio later. Your bio is very detailed, and I understand what you're saying about it being copier-centric. It's like in marketing materials when you say you will do this rather than me. But I think the bio, there's room for a bit of me and you.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this sort of feedback is absolutely precious, and I definitely, I've been actually waiting for people to, comment and give suggestions. So I appreciate this very much, and definitely I will think about it.
Okay, and so give me the address to send the invoice to.
Yeah, absolutely. You already have my email, so just click send.
Now that we're over that potentially awkward stuff, let's get to know you. Can I attempt a little summary of your professional life?
Yes, sure.
You're a web designer in the year 2000, based in Croatia. You did a master's in Spain, in Barcelona, and then back to Croatia to set up a software development and design agency. As a boss, you wanted to be a nurturing force to allow others to flourish, not the traditional boss focused on the bottom line. Idealistically, you wanted to create a company culture to allow for play, but surprisingly found yourself becoming the boss you didn't want to be. After 4 years, you decide to travel and convert the company into more of a work-from-home environment rather than a central playground. And from there, you basically became a digital nomad with interests in investing and photography and things you do not necessarily for monetary reasons. How's that?
Wow. Wow, that's deep research. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, I think that's really paints it very accurately, like what was happening. Yeah.
Okay, so you made a fair bit of money from this business you set up in Zagreb. I think when people read that, the assumption is you made an absolute ton of money and you've now got a Porsche and a couple of apartments in various places. But I learned from that video that we mentioned earlier, the YouTube video, that might not necessarily be the case. So you tell us about your relationship with money.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, the idea of what constitutes a lot of money depends from region to region, from a country to a country. In my case, I'd say this was enough. It wasn't definitely. I mean, I could have bought a Porsche, but that was not sort of my interest. My idea, just behind the whole entrepreneurship was, I always knew that the way to do money, to make some money, and with that create an impact in the world, is to sort of have a cash generating machine, therefore a company, and then use the proceeds of this company to further invest in the stock market, or just in compounding assets, etc. So that was kind of the broad strategy that was in my mind. Of course, I wanted to create a company that it would be a setting where I would grow myself and just allow people to grow with me, and sort of try to create a working environment which would be supportive, not just to making money, but also acquiring different skills and just having fun while working. So that was like a big passion for me. In terms of my relation with money, well, there's a lot of way to look at it, at what money is. I can have a sort of metaphysical overview of money, and say that it's a sort of a energetic conduit. It's a conduit that helps people express their creativity and therefore create an impact in the world. So it's kind of something that creates a soul of a man or a human with the actions in the world. So it's an enabler, it's a conduit of this energy. So that's kind of a metaphysical take on money. The way that I look at it is kind of like a metric for how much responsibility you're taking in your life. So the larger the responsibility, the more people you are encompassing in your area of responsibility, I think that is usually followed with more money. There's kind of a link with the more you're trying to create for as many people as possible. I think there's a way that universe can can support you in that. So if you're just like concerned about you and yourself, you're probably going to have enough money to just, sustain your own needs, etc. But if you start to expand this responsibility and say, hey, I'm a living being, I'm here on this earth, what can I do to make other people's better? Suddenly with these questions, I think there's an opening which allows the money to somehow find a way to flow in your life, and support you in creating value and impact for other people. So that's kind of a philosophical take, that that's how I look at money. And of course, I mean, money is a way to also bring happiness, and just treat yourself with good things and take care of the well-being, and your own, and that of the others, etc. And just support the basic psychological, physiological needs of living. But also it has that kind of a dimension that extends over and out from the personal to the collective.
Fantastic. And money also, of course, can buy you freedom, and freedom is another subject you like to talk about. The meaning of freedom and personal freedom. What does freedom mean to you?
I think we grow up sort of enmeshed in these permission structures throughout our lives. Since the early age, from the kindergarten to the school to then for college and studies, and then get into a typical work career thing where you sort of have to wake up in the morning, do your 9 to 5, etc. And then life is seen as something that happens after you come home back from work. I think this is a sort of unfortunate development of some of the historical tendencies after the Industrial Revolution. But I think that the general trend that I'm seeing going forward is humanity being liberated from the shackles of these permission structures and getting out into this open where we are able to do what you are doing right now, sort of create platforms for other people to express, or for yourself to express as well, for just basically allowing our own talents and passions to come to fruition, and to live a life that is authentically ours, and it's an expression of our true nature. So in that sense, I think when we think about the meaning of life, what is the meaning of life? I think the meaning of life is to create. I think the meaning of life is to add value to others. And I think freedom is a necessary condition for that. Yeah, and I think eToro is a platform that sort of plugs into this notion quite nicely, because it is empowering people to regain some of that lost freedom through achieving an extra income, or through growing their capital, through teaching them how to think in terms of investments and sort of projections in the long term, skills like delayed gratification, develop patience, etc., which are all helpful skills to have in trying to live a good life.
Okay, this is not the usual VIP lounge chit chat, getting to know you section, but I'm loving it. Let's bring it back to something a bit more physical and tangible. You've got a tattoo of a treble clef on your right wrist. What does that signify?
Wow, the amount of research. I mean, CIA can hide away. It's Gavin on the stage. Gavin Agency. Great, great. So, I mean, I used to be a musician. I mean, to the extent that, that's a very sort of generous description of my skill set then. But I used to play in bands, and I played a guitar and a electric guitar and a bass guitar. Did have a few shows, etc. But it's something that I wasn't good enough to persist. Let's call it that way. Or I didn't have maybe the stamina. I was much more interested in entrepreneurship and the things that we just discussed previously, than just fooling around and playing with bands, etc. So I wanted to have an impact on a wider scale, and I saw that music is not really the conduit for that.
What kind of music did you play?
That was mostly like hard rock and heavy metal. I was into Black Sabbath and all the heavy metal bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and whatnot. Yeah, Motorhead.
What was the name of your band?
In Spain, it was Destierro, and in Croatia, it was Dominion.
Dominion. That
Yeah,
sounds like a metal band.
yeah.
Speaking of names of things, and we mentioned it earlier, can you tell us a little bit about what is Germin?
Germin is an organization based in Kosovo and also in Albania. That it's a non-governmental organization that links diaspora with the home countries in an attempt to empower the societies, the population in these countries where Albanians live, in terms of improving the social, economic, and political life through various projects that have to do with philanthropy, investments, youth education, youth empowerment, etc. I think the Gurmin comes the name of the organization. It wasn't founded by me. I mean, it was founded a few years back, and I'm just currently sitting on the board. It's comes from Emil Zola book Germinal, Germinal, which kind of I think translates to a seed for something that is about to sprout, something that is growing. So that's kind of the story there.
To germinate.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Gasper, you're many things: web designer, entrepreneur, world traveler, student of Eastern philosophy and meditation, builder of bridges between cultures, investor, and digital nomad. I also know you dreamed of being an artist when you were younger, but we've no more time to explore all of that. But we can ask a question from the art of people if you give me a number between 1 and 10.
Let's go with 5.
What is the most exciting thing in your personal life right now?
That's a good question. The most exciting thing is, I think, the freedom to choose what excites me. That would be sort of a short way to put it. I have this amazing fortune and luck to be able to wake up every morning and just work on the eToro platform, think about investments. I'm not sort of bound by any sort of outside forces. I mean, you're always bound by something, but at least I can choose how to spend my time. So I think that's kind of pretty exciting.
Okay, so after that very lengthy chit-chat, Gasper, let's move on to eToro related matters. Would you like to read your bio for us?
For sure. So, performance 2021 plus 30%, 2020 138.9%, 2019 41.5%. How to copy. Plus 1K ensures optimal results. Always copy open trades. Stay for at least 90 days to see results. Top up on red days, not green. Strategy. Unique, diversified, mid to long term, style agnostic, mix of top-down and bottom-up strategies encompassing hypergrowth, value, and dividend stocks across US, China, and UK, EU. 92% stocks, 7% crypto, coupled with occasional short-term momentum and contrarian trades. Now I go on to describe what are the sort of elements of my strategy. Growing revenues, hidden gems, overlooked stocks, wide moat, strong brand and following, healthy cash flows, social impact, picks and shovels, exploit market irrationalities, anti-fragility. Risk management, avoid leverage shorting, geographic diversification, cash reserves. About me, experienced entrepreneur and tech founder, MA in cognitive systems, Bachelor of Engineering in UX design, plus 8 years of trading, fluent in English, Spanish, Croatian, and Albanian. And then I go on to state my Twitter link and my fact sheet.
Okay, we'll have a look in a moment at your portfolio to see how your strategy and risk management play out. A couple of things about that. I read somewhere else that you donate 10% of your eToro income to charity. If I was you, I would also put that in the bio, perhaps in the opening lines. I know maybe you don't want to be seen to be using that as too much of a selling point, but you shouldn't hide all your talents under a bushel.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How about your risk score? How fair is your risk score?
Yeah, I think the risk score is something that probably we can discuss a whole hour, about it. But I think it's pretty fair. My portfolio is optimized for growth, and that alone is carries some risk with it. So I think it's pretty accurate.
Just to describe to the listener, the maximum risk score is mostly 5, sometimes 4. One of the rules of Copytraders Club is that risk score is max risk score. Because average risk score, what does that mean? I think it was Peter Lynch, your man Peter Lynch, who said there's been many 6-foot-tall men have drowned crossing a river of an average depth of 5 foot. So average depth means nothing. It's when it drops to 10 feet that you get swept away. So your average risk score is 4 or 5, and max risk is 5. So that's pretty healthy. You're right, risk score can be discussed ad nauseum. And it's the one thing that seems to bring everyone, all eToro users together to agree that it's not the best thing.
Yeah, I'd probably concur with the idea that there's room for improvement, and just the idea of what is risk itself. It's the risk of losing your capital, and how do you measure that, right? So it's a very complex topic.
Which is for another day. Copier numbers and assets under management. Let's have a look at that. Copier numbers 1,570. Assets under management between 2 and 5 million. And your graph shows steady growth initially, then a jump up, and then quite rapid growth, and a bit of a tailing away. But now we look like we're coming up the other side of the cup before the handle, to use terms that I hear other people using. I have no idea what they mean. But are you happy enough with your copier numbers currently and how it's all gone since you started?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think much of it has been organic. I haven't been sort of featured on the editorial, etc. So it's mostly been, I think, the frenzy in 2020 and my good performance, and then I think people sort of when 2021 started to sort of slump a little bit, then people got scared away in March and April, etc. So I think there was a sort of a departure of quite a bit of copiers. But I took a deliberate decision to focus on delivering performance and returns for my existing copiers. And I'm not so adamant and chasing and growing my copier base. I think my current strategy is, if I continue showing good results, eventually people will recognize this and will copy.
Well, let's talk about those results, because I think you're underplaying it. Your last 3 annual stats on the bar chart: 2019, 41.57%, 2020, 139%, and 2021 to date, almost 40%. I mean, those are excellent numbers. Consistent excellence. You should have 10 times the copier numbers. Why don't you?
That's a good question. My sort of explanation for this is 2 things. First, I don't feel as comfortable putting everything out, like, oh, look at my performance, copy me, etc. Taking a more introvert approach and just focusing on the results and trusting that this eventually over time will get recognized. Yeah, and then the second aspect of it is that I think people rely on eToro to help them separate the wheat from the chaff, in the sense that if you are endorsed and promoted by the platform on the Copy People page, then this is an indication that the platform is sort of guaranteeing that you're a quality PI. And so since I haven't been didn't gain any exposure of that level, I probably didn't manage to gain as many copiers. There was a time where I was trying to be sort of more assertive in terms of being promoted, etc., through my account manager, etc. But I think there's currently a rule that you cannot get featured on the editor's choice if you have had more than 100% returns in the last 12 months. So I guess being too good can also be a problem.
Well, I think you will be acknowledged in time. These results don't go unnoticed for long. And with one or two minor tweaks, as we mentioned earlier on, you could make it easier for people to get a handle on you. Let's talk about trades per week and average holding time. 8.22 trades per week, average holding time 6.5 months. So you're not terribly active. Right? Well, you're reasonably active, but you're also a long-term investor for eToro in eToro terms. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my underlying investment approach and philosophy. It's a long-term outlook, a long-term horizon, and then basically take on the positions and wait for the thesis to come to fruition or not. Hopefully, so far has been quite good. I do think that over trading can be detrimental to the gains. I pay attention to making sure that copiers are in sync. So I will often rebalance the portfolio when, if a certain position sort of departs too much from the invested value, and basically just make sure that I'm active and protect the downside. Basically, my most of my trading comes in that sense, in trying to protect the downside and just trying to let the high convictions and the winners run for as long as I think makes sense.
Okay, we're going to move on to your portfolio in just a second and look at some of those positions. Before we do, let's talk about communication. You're on Twitter. Your name is the Nomad Investor, which I take it isn't a nod to Nick Sleep, but more of a reference to your peripatetic lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a website on the way and videos on the way. Is that correct?
The videos, that's something I would definitely love to do. I am much more comfortable behind the camera than in front. So there's a bit of a hesitance in that respect, and I think I just need to start doing them and just see how it goes. But it's definitely something that I would love to share with people, and I'm just sort of waiting for to for this decision to sort of ripen, and then I'm gonna pull the trigger and hopefully start producing some videos.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help that ripening process, I would encourage it, because there are thousands of PIs out there. It's very competitive. Some of them do an incredible job of selling themselves and communicating, and those that do it really well, they really are grasping the whole social investing differentiator, and I think copiers love it. Certainly, I do. I love a communicative PI. I love to be able to check out videos, portfolio updates, or individual stock analyses, things like that. Really helpful. Coming hot on the heels of Bees 84, you're another PI who really engages with copiers on Discord. A lot of back and forth going on. I also note that there's a word you mentioned earlier which appears on your Discord server. You have a channel called Introverts Corner.
Yeah, that was the Introverts Corner. Was sort of, I was thinking, I'm kind of an introvert myself, and sometimes I would find it really difficult to start engaging immediately when I join a different channel. For example, when I joined Jay's server, etc., it was kind of like, it's kind of like I could sense this unease of I need to start communicating, and how do I do that, and things like that. And so I was thinking, how can I facilitate this process for people who might be introvert and have maybe difficulties communicating and have some social anxiety, which is a thing that I used to struggle and sometimes continue to struggle myself. Therefore, the difficulties with creating videos, etc. It's part of a this kind of a inhibition that's in my system. and then I was like, okay, maybe if I create like an introverts channel, it's kind of a safe room for people to come there and feel like they are, with like-minded people there, and maybe they start chatting there. It's like, hey, I'm an introvert, blah, 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 and then slowly move from that gradually to participate in other channels. So that was the idea about the Introverts Corner.
But the more I see of you, the more I think you're able to come across very well, both in the written word and on that video that I mentioned. So I can see from your engagement with copiers in Discord that you're one of these PIs who really wants to be helpful to the copiers. Tell us about your objectives on Discord, and how else do you engage with your copiers?
Yeah, I'd love to be more active on Discord. I was just thinking, what would be the best way to create some more engagement. It's something that I started off as a way to facilitate this one-to-one communication with my copiers and sort of build a community there. Not so much for me to participate on an everyday basis, but to allow other people to connect, and copiers from my community to connect between themselves, share ideas, ask questions, etc. For now, I think my focus has been mainly the eToro feed, and while I am active on the Discord channel, I think there's opportunity to spark up more engagement, and it's something that I'm planning to do.
Well, that's one of the benefits of making videos, is to the viewer, the video feels like it was made for them. If you do it correctly, you're speaking to them. It may not be a give and take communication, but if you're able to explain yourself in one video that takes you 10 minutes to shoot and 20 minutes to edit, that can communicate to all of your copiers in one fell swoop in a way that, all the back and forth on Discord can't.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, I'd love to do it, and it's coming. It's coming for sure.
And the camera loves you, Gasper.
Likewise.
Hope you're enjoying today's show. I'm sure you've subscribed already. If you are a successful copy trader, happy to share what you've learned, there's no need to have a public profile. Get in touch. The bigger the club, the better for you. So tell people on eToro about this show. Ask your PIs to come on. That way you will get to know them better. We build this club together. Moving on to your portfolio positions, let's do a little broad brush description. 94% stocks, 6% crypto, and that's it. Number of positions, 42. Position size, maximum is 5.5%, and around the top 10 are all around 4% or so, slightly above, and they decrease in size in batches until the smallest, which is 0.57%. In your bio, you say you have an agnostic mix. Some of my best friends are agnostic mix. Your top 5 are GoPro, Corsair, Google, Berkshire Hathaway, and Twitter. You have some old school businesses in there, plus tech and financials. Speaking of financials, I see Visa, MasterCard, and Square are all in there. And you also have Airbus and Boeing, both. Do those examples show a pattern of behavior?
In which way?
Well, you don't plump for one. You cover your bases. You've both Airbus and Boeing. You've got Visa and MasterCard and Square.
I see what you mean. Yes, that is a... when I speak about in my bio about a top-down and bottom-up strategy, that's, I think, a good example of how I treat it. So I would go to figure out sectors and just general trends and secular themes that I think will do great in the future. And then I try to pick and diversify the risk, not just by going all in on one, but try to spread it in the key players that are sort of directly positioned within the theme or sector, or have some connection that is not immediately obvious. In terms of the position sizing, I think that current sizing does not necessarily reflect my key convictions, because some of these positions I'm building over term. So, for example, Tesla is a good example. While I'm not a fan of timing the market, I hesitate a little bit to go overweight on Tesla, and therefore I'm keeping my position quite low. But Tesla is, for example, a company that I'm very bullish on in 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I think will make a great investment. But due to the nature of active management and protecting investors from big drawdowns, some of these positions are being built over time. So that kind of explains the current approach that I take in designing the portfolio.
Speaking of time, can we go back to your bio a second? Because in it you recommend the length of time that a copier should copy for. There's a minimum mentioned, which struck me as very short.
I think it's 90 days.
Stay for at least 90 days to see results. And average holding time is 6 months. So a bit of a dichotomy.
It's more a user experience thing. I think this is where I bring my understanding of psychology and user experience. I think that most of the new investors on eToro sort of come with great expectations of achieving riches overnight. And so I know that this is a sort of, it's a thing that every new investor brings into the journey. And myself have also, when I started, having all these crazy expectations. But my approach here was, if I say, you have to stay for a year, this will put off a lot of people. And this might not be in their interest, because clearly with time, the likelihood of achieving returns increases. And so I decided to, at least, because I saw a pattern of people coming in and then staying for a month or less and then dropping out. And so I was like, okay, 3 months sounds like, given the structure of my portfolio, like a reasonable time for it to show some performance. And then hopefully people will, as they get exposed to my thinking and as they get exposed to the things that I write, as they get exposed to the approaches of, having a long-term mindset, etc., they will be more encouraged to stay for longer periods of time. So it's in a way protecting novice investors from themselves. That was my thinking. How do I sort of get them to understand the need to think long term, by first giving them a small sort of time frame for them to ease in the journey of investing. That was my thinking.
Back to your portfolio, mostly US stocks, but I also see BABA, a few listed in London, and one or two from Paris, Frankfurt. So there's some geographical diversification, which is mentioned as a factor in your bio also, but not a huge amount considering there's 42 positions. Is the current amount of geographic diversification standard or representative of how it normally is?
Yeah, I think so. I think there might be a sort of a misguided notion that geographic diversification is somehow an indicator of a better performance in the future, or somehow is better for the investor. There is a logic that supports this kind of thinking. But at the same time, my portfolio is structured around growing companies that are innovating, and I don't see a better place to innovate than the United States. So I think that while Europe is definitely a great Europe and UK are definitely great places to live, great quality of life. there is reason to believe that they are not keeping up with the pace of innovation as the U.S. And so I prefer to keep the U.S. as a core market for my strategy, and then I diversify around other geographies, mostly as a way to protect the downside and sort of try to keep the portfolio correlation a little bit more balanced in order to dampen any kind of a aggressive pullback, etc. So I use diversification more as a way to hedge the portfolio than as a way to sort of support the growth. I think the most of the growth in the way that I see it is going to come from the innovative parts of the world.
And can you expand on what your agnosticism means?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to be very light on your feet when it comes to investing. And there, I see a danger of sort of labeling yourself in a certain way, saying that, oh, I'm a growth investor, or I'm a value investor, or I'm a momentum trader, or this or that, because I think these kind of labels then prime you into filtering out some obvious opportunities. And so, in that sense, I refer to that as an agnostic style. I will be open to what is happening in the market, while fundamentally, the backbone of my approach is in the approach that Warren Buffett and Peter Lynch have spearheaded in terms of being invested in companies that have a intrinsic value and that the market is mispricing. I do think that it's important to also include other styles, and I have no problem investing in, for example, in an opportunistic trade, a meme stock. I did well with GME. I did well with Neo, etc. So I think that's kind of a approach that I try to take to have a grounding in a value investment philosophy in a long term, but also be open to incorporate any kind of opportunistic trades, contrarian trades, sometimes shorting. Not often, but still I do. When there is an obvious, to what seems to me as an obvious trade, I will not hesitate. And I recognize myself. There was a point where I was like, oh no, I'm not going to do this because this is not in line with value investment. But then I was okay. Why stick? Why be confined by an ideology when in fact my job is to maximize the returns for my copiers and myself?
Yes, there's a lot of snobbery around sometimes when people see, oh, he made his money from Neo and GME, Tesla, as if anyone who's involved in those kind of high growth stories or meme stocks is just, a chancer. Is riding it through luck rather than judgment. But as you say, your job is to see opportunities and exploit them, no matter what shape or color they come in. So why not celebrate the guy who's able to back the right horses, provided he or she does so in such a way that doesn't expose everyone to too much risk.
Exactly. That's absolutely it. Yeah, just making sure that your downside is protected, and then you are open to exploring any market irrationality or any emergent opportunity that is presenting itself. And in my case, it's never with a super significant amount of my funds. It's always a matter of a favorable risk and reward ratio.
Is GME your highest returning investment, percentage terms?
No, I don't think it is. I think Tesla was.
And tell us a bit about that then as your best investment.
Yeah, I mean, I've been holding Tesla for a while. I think I'm not really sure when I first opened the position on eToro. I've since unwinded it and then gotten back in when it dropped after the crazy run it has had.
Did you buy much after the March drop?
No, I didn't. I didn't go too big on it. Yeah, I was. This is the thing. I think because I'm investing funds from other people, I have a more sort of risk averse attitude than I would usually have. Probably if it was just my own portfolio, I would have kept it and ride it through all the ups and downs. But as an active risk manager, I feel that I have to take sometimes to leave some chips off the table for the benefit of protecting the downside and protecting the capital. I think I made about maybe 12x or 11x on Tesla or something like that. I was selling on the sort of in different tranches, but I think those position was like 2 or 3 years old.
Okay, and another rule of Copy Traders Club is you can't mention a success without mentioning a failure. So tell us about a time when you got something disastrously wrong.
Yeah, I think that definitely is the XRP, the Ripple token. So I think I lost about 80% on that one, but I think I wasn't invested more than 4 or 5% of my portfolio on that one. And again, here I sort of the mistake was I posted on my feed that I'm going to sell it to protect from further losses, but I was convinced that it was going to bounce back. But I didn't buy in when it hit the floor, etc. But that's okay because I was trying to reduce my crypto exposure anyway. Yeah, my general approach is just focus on the portfolio as a whole and make sure that it's like a football team. I'm managing it as a football team where individual players are important, but what usually makes the difference and brings result is the team play, and that's how I approach my investment.
That's interesting because I've used the analogy previously of a copy trader putting together a team, like a football team. But in fact, I think it's more accurate to think of a copy trader selecting a PI as if the PI is the manager. You don't want to go looking for the guy who's on a winning streak. He's had good form recently. He's scored in the last 5 games. That's not the guy you get in because he's likely, well, not likely, but he's unlikely to keep that going. I think a lot of copiers make that mistake. It's like they're playing fantasy football. They get a PI in because he's done so well in the last 3 months. And then in the first 3 months of their copy, he doesn't. And they think, oh, he's gone off the boil, this guy. Whereas if you approach it as looking for a manager, imagine the interviews that clubs have with managers, and they want to know about the manager's philosophy and his long-term plan and how he plans to shape things over time. And it's much more like that, I think. Copiers are looking for a manager, not for a team of players, but a team of managers, in fact.
You are bang on right. Yeah, that's spot on. You just hit the nail on the head. That's definitely it. I think you touched upon the most important point on the whole eToro platform. I think that the need that the copiers understand that PIs are not like stocks that you can just trade for one for another, but it's more like a commitment to selecting a manager who is now managing your money, and that takes time.
Let's move on to your copiers. Who should copy you?
Everyone should copy me. Well, joking aside, I think my portfolio works great for people who aren't just trying to make money and aren't on eToro just to trade, cryptos. Although there's nothing wrong with that, but are interested in having a journey with someone who is willing to share their experience of investing and trying to learn not only about investments, but also everything that contributes to what makes investors be good at what they do, and what creates the necessary conditions to grow your capital, which means acquiring skills like long-term thinking, like how to exercise patience and sort of coolness of the head, how to learn how not to have like knee-jerk reactions on every pullback, and just understand, what are the necessary requirements for a company to do good in the future, etc. Things like that. So I think people who are interested in having a more holistic approach to investment, something that they can also extend beyond the screen of the platform and take into their lives, I think they will benefit from copying me.
And who shouldn't copy you?
That's a good question. So I try to be as welcoming as inclusive as possible. I think that is, in a way, the reason why I put the 90 days requirement to copy me in my bio, because I want to sort of address the largest number of people, and even people who are expecting to get rich overnight are welcome to join my community or follow me or copy me, and then slowly during these interactions with asking questions and raising issues, just slowly try to adopt maybe a more long-term approach and try to understand what investing really is.
Here's another question that kind of sounds like it's a question that you've already answered, but it sometimes leads to a slightly different path. Is there a right way or a wrong way to copy you?
Yeah, again, great question. On the sort of superficial level, I'd say there's not a wrong way or a right way to copy me. Sometimes I do notice, though, that copiers struggle with understanding why their performance, as indicated in their copy, is different from mine when they look at the stats, because throughout the copy they've been adding topping up on the copy without understanding that this is changing the average prices, and then is shifting their P&L either upwards or downwards. Usually it's downwards because the nature of the human being is to be more courageous in during green days, and so people top up during green days, which inadvertently then will reduce their P&L, and so then people stop copying because they think that the PI is underperforming, while in fact they are performing equally. So I'd say the wrong way to copy would be to add only on green days and just disregard the red days. That would, I think, be something that constitutes a bad way to copy. Of course, trying to stay as long as possible so that they can benefit from the long-term investment approach. That's a good way to do it.
Okay, see, that did throw up something interesting. And you mentioned adding funds. What's the story with your funds? How much you have, how much skin you have in the game? To what extent do you have to add money?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the amount, I think I'm about 94,000 US dollars right now on my account. As much as I would like to be adding frequently, I don't do it because this is disruptive, I think, to the copiers and puts them in a position where they have to add, and maybe they're not in the position to add, and then they have to fall out of sync and creates a whole bunch of problems. I would love to be able to add, and I think this is something maybe that eToro could find a way how to solve, to allow the PIs to add to the copy and not cause the desyncing issues.
But you don't have to add in order to progress to the next level, do you?
I don't think I have to add to progress further. I think the requirement for the pro level is 50K, so I'm almost double above that.
I think that's becoming an increasingly important thing for copiers to look out for, is PIs who aren't going to be adding money. Becoming more and more of an issue. You see it in people's videos and copier chat and copier dissatisfaction with PIs that are constantly adding funds. In fact, that should be another thing that you should maybe make more of. If I was you, if I was a PI, that would feature quite prominently in my bio. I don't need to add any more funds. You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, you can include that in the invoice, please.
Okay. Do you have any copiers that copy only you?
I think there are a few, and when I notice that, I will usually suggest that they diversify. I know one example where the copier was like very strongly sort of convinced that I should be the only one who he should copy. And even though that I suggested they should diversify, they was like, no, you are well diversified as well. So according to him, there wasn't a need to diversify further. So, but I still do think that it's good to have a mix. I wouldn't suggest diversifying too much. When I used to be a copier, I think I was copying Wesley and Jay and maybe somebody else. So,
what other PI would you say you know best on a personal level?
Good question. Unfortunately, I haven't met anyone in person, mostly due to the Corona situation. But through the J Discords, I've met quite a few of them and sort of have established a communication. And sometimes we would either join on a J's streaming thing, or we would just communicate just by chat. So, for example, I got to know a little bit of Paolo. I got to know Ralek. He goes by that's his eToro name. His real name is Claude. Of course, Jay, the man himself, to a certain extent. And I've had some one-to-one chats and discussions with Wesley, which used to be my hero along with Jay back in the days. So I was quite happy to engage with them. Fantastic people. I mean, it's just great experience.
Yeah, it's great fun talking to all these people as well. It's great fun for me to do that, to sort of gate crash the soap opera that is eToro and talk to people like yourself. Okay, final question. If you were in my shoes, what question would you like to have asked yourself that I didn't?
Oh, wow. I would have probably asked maybe why I started investing in the first place. But I think that we've already sort of touched upon that, even though you didn't formulate it in that way. But I think the answer is already in the discussion. So I think you're doing a great job with your shows and with your questions. So really, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I can't really think of something that that would be adding value to the conversation that you didn't bring in or asked about. So well done.
Well, you have certainly added value to the conversation, Gasper. It's been great to get to know you and to talk through all these various issues. I wish you every success in the future, and I look forward to seeing when the new picture and a few new words are added to your bio and you get the Copytraders Club bump. I'm going to watch your copiers graph take a sharp upturn.
Thank you so much. I super appreciate all your feedback, and definitely it's something that I will be looking into seriously. And I agree with most points that you made. I think maybe I am downselling myself, and definitely if we see that bump, I'll make sure to sort of express my gratitude to you in a form of, I don't know, we'll have to think about how to do that, but maybe meet you in person and go for lunch, beers, or whatever.
Okay, Gasper. Well, thank you very much indeed. All the best and good luck in the future.
Thank you. Likewise, we'll be following your show. It's great. Thank you.
I hope, listener, you found that chat with Gasper as illuminating and enjoyable as I did. We probably could have filled the time on tangents alone, but we know you like a bit of eToro talk now and then. So with any luck, you will have a much better idea of Gasper, both as a PI and a person. The next episode coming up is a bonus experimental Total eToro episode with Jay, Robert, Felix, which has not yet been recorded and could still all go very Pete Tom. Equally, it might well be the shape of things to come on a monthly basis. That's all from me. You can continue the conversation on Discord and Facebook. Until next time we meet at Copytraders Club, I wish you many happy returns. Obviously, anything you hear in this podcast is for entertainment only, not financial advice. Do your own research. This is just generic chit chat. We don't know your individual circumstances, etc., and so forth.